which program needs to be executed first, which program is dependent on another program. All those synchronization activities are done by the scheduling algorithms. What is the meaning of I/O operation? Whether it may be a printer operation, that is interacting with hardware devices, all this called as an I/O operation. Then communication may be implemented by two methods. As I told you that one of the method is shared memory and the other one is message passing method. Hello everyone, it is Dr. Ravi Kumar Baibi, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In today's session, you are going to learn about the protection system of system software and operating system. What does the meaning of protection system refers to in case of operating systems? Suppose if there are multiple users trying to access the resources of a system, that is whether the resources may be referred to as in terms of CPU time or memory or any of the other resources which are required by the users are going to be protected by the operating system. That is the meaning of protection features of operating system. If that is the case, let us explain about the protection system in detail. If a computer system has multiple users and allows concurrent execution of multiple processes, then various processes must be protected from one another's activities. The meaning of this indicates that suppose if there are user 1, user 2, user 3 wants to access programs. Suppose if user 1 wants to access these programs, and if user 1 reads the program and updates something, suppose x equal to 5 is the value present in this program, and he updates it to x plus 10 equal to x, then x will be 15. This is the newly updated code that is done by user 1, that is this user 1. Then user 2 must obtain the value of x equal to 15, not 5. In case if I give the concurrent access to both user 1, user 2 and user 3, then they will get an abnormal result, that is the result which is not expected by the user. So in order to give a correct value to the users, the program must be protected. That is, the program must be protected from user 1, user 2 and user 3. How this protection is given to the programs from users in the form of lock and unlock. This lock property enables the users to lock the execution of these programs, and unlock program enables the programs to be unlocked for users. So that is how we are going to do that. This protection refers to the mechanism for controlling the access of programs, the same thing, access of programs and processes or users to the resources defined by the computer systems. So, if that is the case, an operating system provides services to both users and the programs. That means hardware is there, users are there. So, the operating system lies between those, provides services to both hardware as well as to users. So it is a barrier, it is an interface that works between the hardware as well as the users. As well as the users. The first service provided by the operating system is programs and environment to execute. It provides a program and environment to execute. It provides users the services to execute the programs in a convenient manner. That is, in both convenient manner, it provides services to execute the programs for users. That is the second type of service provided by the operating system. If that is the case, this few of the common services provided by the operating systems are program execution, that becomes a process. I/O operations. IO operations may be input or output operations. Input or output operations. File system manipulation. That is, file system manipulations include creation of file, deletion of file, modification of file, all these are certain types of file system manipulations. Next, communication. Suppose if there is a resource which needs to be shared among the users, then communication is also very, very important. This communication allows the programmer to interact with the hardware devices through the communication channel that is connected to computer systems. That is, whether it may be a LAN or a WAN or a MAN or a PAN. All these are called as a communication devices. Then we have error detection. Suppose if there is any deadlock, that means if P1 is waiting for P2, P2 is waiting for P3, P3 is waiting for P1, then there is a deadlock. Because each of these processes are waiting for one another. That is called as a deadlock, also called as an error detection. This is done to check whether the system is in safe state or unsafe state. Then resource allocation. What is the type of resource allocation? Whether it may be in terms of time or cycles per second, or it may be in terms of memory, or it may be in terms of file operations, or it may be in terms of IO operations. All these are called as resources. These resources must be allocated among multiple processes to multiple users. That is the reason we have to provide services to all the users from the operating system point of view. If that is the case, protection is also one of the important type of services. The same thing is discussed here. Then we have accounting. What is the meaning of accounting here? Let me tell you that. Suppose if there is any one of the process waiting here, and P2 is another process, P3 is another process, P4 is another process, P5 is another process. All these processes must be executed according to the requirement of their execution time. What is the meaning of execution time here? P1 arrives at time 0, P2 arrives at time 5, P3 arrives at time 2, P4 arrives at time 6, P5 arrives at time 8. If that is the case, which process arrives first? P1. That is, P1 must be executed. Then P3 must be executed because it has arrived even before P2 arrives. So P3 must be executed. Then P2 is executed. This is 1, 2, 3, then P4, then P5. So all these processes must be executed properly in time. The accounting of this information must be maintained by the operating system. That is the reason we are using here the term accounting. Then we have the program execution here. That is, while executing the program, it becomes a process. The explanation of same is done here. That is program execution. Operating system handles many kinds of activities, from user programs to system programs, like printer spooler, name servers, file server, etc. Each of these activities is encapsulated as a process. What is the meaning of printer spooler? We have certain operations like printer P1, printer P2, printer P3. Each of these printer requests for a resources. What is that resource? Memory or IO operations. Then it has to be kept in a pool of data, pool of requirement. That is called as printer spooler. So I'm using the word user programs to system programs. So user programs to system programs. I'm using the word here. Then a process includes the complete execution context, code to execute, data to manipulate, registers, OS resources in use. Following are the major activities. Which is that major activity? The first one is loads a program into memory, that is from secondary memory to primary memory, that is to RAM. That is one of the important functionality of this. Which is the other functionality? Once when it is loaded, it has to be executed. Then during the time of execution of a program, it becomes a process, executes the program. That is the second type of functionality. If that is the case, which is the third type of functionality? Handles programs execution. That is the third type of functionality. Fourth type of functionality is provides a mechanism for process synchronization. Suppose if these processes P1, P2, P3, P4 must be executed, P5 must be executed, there must be some synchronization among them. What is that synchronization? That is P1, P2, P3, P4, P5 must be executed according to the scheduling algorithm which we have in the operating system. The scheduling algorithm may be first come, first serve, priority scheduling, or it may be another type of scheduling, that is shortest job first scheduling, or it may be a preemptive shortest job first scheduling algorithm, non-preemptive shortest job first scheduling algorithm, or it may be a round robin scheduling algorithm. All these are certain types of scheduling algorithm that enables the programmer to use any of these processes according to the synchronization. Which program needs to be executed first? Which program is dependent on another program? All those synchronization activities are done by the scheduling algorithms. It provides a mechanism for process communication. Suppose process P1 is wants to communicate with process P2. It can communicate with the process P2 in two manners. One is through the message passing. This is one of the method. Another one is through the shared memory. So when P1 wants to communicate with P2, in case of message passing, operating system is located here, P1 is here, P2 is here. P1 transfers a message to the P2, P2 transfers a message to P1. So this is called as message passing. In case of shared memory, OS is here, P1 is here, shared memory is here, P2 is here. So P1 shares the data with shared memory region, and P2 fetches the data from here and keeps it with itself. Suppose when P2 wants to communicate with it, P2 writes the data into the shared memory and P1 fetches the return data from this shared memory so that it reads the data through the shared memory region. This is how the communication takes place between process P1 and process P2. If that is the case, it also provides a mechanism for deadlock handling. What is the meaning of deadlock? As I have already told you that P1 is waiting for some of the resources of P2, P2 is waiting for the resources of P3, P3 is in turn waiting for the resources of P1. If that is the case, there would be a cycle of graph that enables the programs or processes to be executed in cycle that leads to the situation of deadlock. So that's why we state that the system is hung. We state that system hang up. What is the meaning of? Meaning of that. System as hung. Past participle form of ang. That means it is not working because the resources are already allocated to another process. One of the process is waiting for another process is waiting for one more process is waiting for the first process. So this is how a chain of processes would be waiting for the resources. That is called as deadlock handling. That has to be handled carefully. If so handled, then there would not be any deadlock. Then the system will not be hung. So, which is the next operation? I/O operation. What is the meaning of I/O operation? Whether it may be a printer operation that is interacting with hardware devices, all this called as an I/O operation. An I/O subsystem comprises of I/O devices and their corresponding driver software. Drivers hide the peculiarities of specific hardware devices from the users. That is, if any of the application softwares wants to interact with the hardware devices, then there must be some specific drivers. Operating system in turn interacts with drivers, or also called as device drivers. These device drivers helps the programmer to work with the device drivers through operating system, which enables them to interact with the hardware devices. So there would be a communication channel from application software to device driver software, then device driver software to operating system to the hardware devices. If that is the case, suppose if I want to install any printer into my laptop or to my desktop computer, then I must have installed that particular printer software, also called as device driver software. That device driver software interacts with operating system in turn interacts with hardware devices. That means operating system is going to handle and manage all those device drivers. The device driver in turn communicates with printers. So this is how the communication channel establishes among the application software and the hardware devices through device drivers and operating systems. If that is the case, an operating system manages the communication between user and the device drivers. That's what? Between the users and the device drivers. I/O operation means read or write operation with any file or any specific I/O devices. As I have already told you that if one of the process wants to write anything into any of the shared area, it must have got the permission, that is read permission, write permission, read-write permission. All these are required. In some cases, few of the processes are permitted to perform only read operation. Few of the processes are permitted to perform write operation. Few of the processes are permitted to perform both read and write operation. So we must have enabled the processes to perform the operations, read and write operations. Operating system provides access to the required I/O devices when required. When it is required, it performs the operations. Then what is the meaning of file system manipulation? A file represents a collection of related information. That is, computers can store files on the disk, that is secondary storage, also called as an hard disk, for a long-term storage purposes. That is, even when the power is off, when the power fluctuation is there, all these programs and data can be stored in the secondary storage devices. That is done by the file system manipulation, which is in turn manipulated and managed by the operating system. So examples of this storage media includes magnetic tape. You can see in the earlier days they used to have the magnetic tapes, magnetic disk and optical disk drives, and the CD, DVD. All these are called as storage devices. Nowadays we have the pen drives and all those things, USB and all those things. Each of these media has its own properties like speed, capacity, data transfer rate and data access methods. For example, I will take the example of USB 2.0. USB 2.0 and USB 3.0. What is the difference between them? If there is a USB 2.0, the transfer of data from computer to the USB is very high. That is, the speed is very high. Suppose if you consider the USB data 2.0, the speed is very less, low. That is how USB 3.0, we are going to tell that speed. What is the capacity, whether it is 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB, so on like that. What is the data transfer rate? All those things are measured. Those are also called as properties of these media devices that must be handled by the operating systems. Then file system manipulation also includes, the system is normally organized into directories, that is one folder. Within this folder, we will be having few folders. Within this folder, we will have one more folder. We will have one more file within this. So these are called as directories, organized into directories for easy navigation usage. These directories may contain files and other directories. Following are the major activities of an operating system with respect to file management. That is management of all these files, because this file is placed inside one directory, this directory is placed inside another directory, this directory is in turn placed in another directory. So management of all these things must be done by the operating system. So then program needs to read a file or write a file. The operating system gives the permission to the program for operation on file. That is what I discussed earlier. That is read permission, write permission. Read, write permissions are all the certain types of permission that needs to be given by the operating system. Permission varies from read only, read write, denied, and so on. That is the read write, read only, write, and all those things. Exclusive read only, exclusive write only, all those things are certain types of permissions that is managed and given by the operating system to the processes. Then the file system manipulation also includes, the operating system provides an interface to the user to create or delete files. Suppose if you look at the Windows operating system, any of the files stored in it can be created and managed and deleted or manipulated. That is the reason we are going to have the file system here. That is the file system here. The operating system provides an interface to the user to create or delete directories. This operating system provides an interface to the user to create or delete directories. Then create and backup the file systems. Once it is deleted, we can take the backup of the file deleted. That is also possible with respect to the operating system. So operating system provides these features to the users. Moving on to the communication. Communication includes the LAN, WAN, MAN, PAN. All these are things are called as the communication channel. Communication channel. In case of distributed systems, which are a collection of processors that do not share memory, peripheral devices, or a clock, the operating system manages the communications between all the processors. Suppose if there are process P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, so on like this. The communication between these processes are carried out by the operating system. So this is done by the operating system. Multiple processes communicate with one another like this, through communication lines in the network. That is either through the LAN or through the MAN or through the PAN or through the MAN. If I take the LAN, only within a building or within a campus, we can communicate from one of the computer to another computer. If it is a case of PAN, personal area network, we have mobile devices also called as an ad hoc networks, wherein one of the mobile devices can communicate with another mobile devices which is there within the vicinity. That is also called as PAN. We have a MAN, metropolitan area network. That means within a city, within an area, we can communicate one of the computer with another computer. That is called as MAN. We have WAN. That means wide area network. If one of the computer wants to communicate with another computer which is there in US or UK or China or Japan, then we can use the network called WAN. So this is how the communication channel that helps the computer to interact with another computer with the help of an operating system. Then OS handles routing and connection strategies. It also handles the networking channels and protocols. What is that? Two processes often require data to be transferred between them. That is what I told you, that is process P1 and process P2 wants to communicate with one another. If that is the case, they can do so in two methods. The first method is this one, message passing system, and the other one is shared memory system. So one process can communicate with another process through these methods, these two methods. Both the processes can be on one computer or on different computers, but are connected through a computer network. Please understand this carefully. This need not be in a single computer. The communication can also take place among different computers. That is also possible through the computer network. Then communication may be implemented by two methods. As I told you, that one of the method is shared memory and the other one is message passing method. That is the message passing method. These types of methods helps the operating system to interact with one of the computer or any one of the computer through the network communication channel that is established by the operating system. So my dear students, I hope you are following really well. If you have any questions, kindly come back to me, come to college. I will be available in the department and I can solve you and clear all of your doubts. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.